Viewers, how much is too much? Can comedy endlessly extend its boundaries? Can a recipe for wit include vulgarity as an ingredient? Does the license for creativity enjoy a carte blanche? Should there be defined do's and don'ts for securing views, likes, subscribers or followers? Well, freedom of speech is a right, but should it be absolute? What about the responsibility? We are against the curbs, but should the absence of curbs precipitate what we are witnessing today? We are talking about a very popular content creator slash influencer in India, Ranveer Allahbadia, who is facing a backlash because of an incestuous question about one's mother and father he asked to one of the contestants on comedian Samay Raina's show India's Got Latent, and the way others were seen laughing at it. After facing outrage online, he posted an apology too. Listen in to first what he had said and then the apology.
My comment wasn't just inappropriate, it wasn't even funny. Comedy is not my forte. I'm just here to say sorry. I promise to just get better. I've asked the makers of the video to remove the insensitive sections from the video. And all I can say in the end is, I'm sorry. I hope you can forgive me.
And to talk more about it, we are joined by Shiv Sena UBT MP Priyanka Chaturvedi. Ma'am, thank you very much for speaking with us here on Times Now. Firstly, the remark by Ranveer Allahbadia has triggered a big debate, with many saying that he is not the only one who has included vulgarity as an ingredient in his recipe for wit. How will you like to respond?
No, he may not be the only one. There could be plenty, but please understand that many of the ones who are using the YouTube platform are getting away with content which is absolutely defamatory, crossing the boundaries of morality and decency. And what he said is he's not some random YouTuber. He has millions of followers on YouTube. He has millions of followers on Instagram. He has millions of followers on Twitter. He is invited as an influencer to many universities and colleges. You come with some certain sense of responsibility. When you speak on your podcast with cabinet ministers and you're awarded by none other than the Prime Minister himself, then there is some level and boundaries that you need to ensure you create so as to be able to maintain that dignity and respect that the government of India has given to you, or for that matter, the country has given to you. So what he did was, talking about incest, talking about parents, intimacy, etc. I felt suitably outraged that we cannot be leaving behind this kind of content creators who want to create controversies and grab more eyeballs and get more clickbaits on their platforms and get away without any accountability and their responsibility towards, the generation they are catering to.
Okay. And earlier also on social media platform X, you've called for a need to set boundaries since these platforms influence young minds. You're a mother yourself. What should be done to deal with it? Do we need some kind of a law to regulate what is posted online?
No, so firstly, I would not want the state to intervene for every single, boundaries that are crossed. I would expect these platforms, as more than the platforms, these content creators to understand that while the Constitution gives you freedom of speech, that very Constitution also puts boundaries. If anything is crossing moral decency or harming international relations or harming national interest or is defamatory, it can be sued under law. Constitution also provides for that. So content creators, we have been pushing for self-regulation, but they forget that their responsibility towards self-regulation, they just don't follow it. I would want state interference minimal. But if these content creators do not understand the responsibility that comes with the freedom of speech given to them, then that is when the state steps in. I do not want any new law which will curtail freedom of speech. I'm all for freedom of speech. But freedom of speech, every single citizen of this country needs to know, comes with a certain sense of responsibilities, which these content creators have clearly crossed the limits, and there has to be some accountability. So I'm very certain with the outrage that we're seeing across the country about the comments made, they would take cognizance. And let me also give you an example. I had raised an issue. I'm a member of the IT and Standing Committee in Information Broadcasting, and there was absolute defamatory content about me spoken on so-called news channels which flourish on such platforms, and it was defamatory in content, and that content was used by multiple other YouTubers without understanding the consequence of it. I went after them, I filed an FIR, and over 11 such links were taken down thanks to also the active support of the Standing Committee of IT and INB. So even if we get into that, where we get the act together, hold accountability, then probably we will see much lesser, more responsibility coming by on the end of such YouTube content creators.
But Ms. Priyanka Chaturvedi, you raised an issue, and here on this, point that we have, what Ranveer Allahbadia has said, there is a lot of outrage, but there is a lot still that goes out on various social media platforms. How do we check that? Do we need some kind of a censor board for social media?
No, I do not know about having a censor board per se, because it kills the very purpose of what such platforms give you. A platform gives you an ability to show your talent, to focus on what you're good at, to engage, if you're creating entertainment, your entertainment, engages people in some way or the other. But when you're creating this entertainment on these platforms, which are absolutely free of cost, you must be mindful of the responsibilities come with it. Second, other platforms which are giving them this space. Most of the time, YouTube gets away with a lot of accountability because of their community guidelines, standards that they have set as per the US-based standards. Do not apply to India. There are many, and every geography. What is guidelines in India may not, or Asian continent may not work in African continent. So they have to be sensitive to the fact that they're catering to a whole 1.4 billion people who have data, who have the ability, who have mobile phones, access to mobile phones, can be consuming this kind of content, and to be actively taking it down. I would say maybe some kind of certification. I don't know if that works, but seriously, we will need to have to kind of understand that there are responsibilities that come with freedom of speech, and probably when we discuss this in the standing committee, we will try and find out the best way, the minimal way of state intervention, getting maximum, allowing maximum freedom of speech, but with regulation in place and understanding where they're crossing the boundaries.
So we all have seen the outrage across social media platform on this particular issue, and after that, Ranveer Allahbadia apologized as well. Is that enough?
No, I'm sorry. An apology doesn't cut ice if it has come after massive outrage. At some point in time, as someone who is such a big influencer, as someone who influences young minds, and I must give you an example. There are some journalism students I met, I won't name the university, and they said their source of information comes from these beerbiceps podcast. So can you imagine that that's the kind of viewership he seems to have? So he should have spoken with responsibility. You can even deny being on a platform which speaks, and if you look at that particular show that is played out on YouTube, this is not the first time they've crossed all boundaries. Yes. They have mocked people with disabilities. They have mocked people, young mothers. They have mocked anybody who, even tries to roast them. So that kind of mockery and not even understanding the boundaries is absolutely unacceptable. Talking badly about women, talking badly about people with disabilities. So this is consistently happening on that platform. For him to have even joined the platform, I mean, you can always think of saying no, whatever, but an apology doesn't cut ice, really. You need to understand the consequences of what you're speaking, where you're speaking, and ultimately, all the name and fame you have got is because of the content you create.
Now, another video has surfaced with some YouTubers cracking the exact same joke. So clearly that shows that it wasn't said accidentally. It wasn't really a slip of tongue.
Actually, I saw the video where exact words were used, and that particular video has two people who are clearly not from India, and maybe their community guidelines are very different from us. Their sense of morality, decency, etc. could be very different from where we stand. So such an off-color, such a humiliating comment made by copying exactly what was being spoken by people who are exactly clearly non-Indians, to crack it in the same way in India, is, I think, also not understanding that where India stands in terms of societal norms. So this is what I feel, that just blindly aping and trying to be cool and trying to pass off that coolness to the rest of the country is incorrect, and there have to be some some kind of consequences for the things that are said and spoken on public platforms and which can influence young minds.
When you say consequences, complaints have been filed in this case, FIRs are also being filed. Is that the right way to deal with it?
I can give you my own personal example. When I thought something was defamatory and nothing was coming off, requesting these channels to take down that defamatory content, and you were seeing that that's being used by various other people to create their own content, I had to step in and file an FIR. I had to send them a defamation notice. But this entire idea and obviously they found merit in the what I was saying, that is why it was taken down, and IT ministry found merit in what I was saying for them to cooperate and take it down and get YouTube to take it down. But how many women will keep fighting this fight? How many people will keep fighting their fight? Till an example, and I'm not saying put him behind bars. I'm not saying jail him for good or ban his channel for good. What I'm saying is they need to ensure that the content that they create, under the garb of comedy, they can't get away with anything, abusive language, mocking people with disabilities, mocking people across gender, is just not, I would say, a healthy way of grabbing eyeballs. So consequences could be, I mean, I don't know what the FIR that has been filed under what sections, but there has to be certain boundaries which we tell the people, like just how we have in civil society, we have a way of living, and if anything that you cross boundaries, you face action. Similarly, we will need to have this in digital societies as the country moves more towards digital spaces and digital conversations and online spaces.
All right, Ms. Priyanka Chaturvedi, thank you very much for speaking with us here on Times Now and sharing with us your perspective.